Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to subscribe, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, the next day, the two assassins made it closer to the town of Ricardo, scanning a nearby forest, hoping to find their target, Yuji. As the male assassin voices his excitement to kill another target, the female assassin tosses a blade at her partner, barely missing his head, as she warns him to not let his guard down. Seeing his partner act so cruel, the male assassin gets excited, coincidentally spotting Yuji passing by the forest, there watching over. Cutting to Yuji, he reveals that he too had noticed his name on the scroll, and once he did, there was no way he could stay in town. He had told the town's receptionist of this, which made the receptionist sad, but before Yuji leaves, he asks if the receptionist recommends any towns he should visit. Pondering for a bit, the receptionist suggests the town of Boginia, known for the production of valuable armor. Additionally, the receptionist recommends visiting Gagel's workshop, a man with a stern attitude, but is a master at crafting items. Just like that, Yuji begins making his way to a different village, thinking about how strong his companions will become if he gave them some rare gear. Suddenly, Yuji gets a report from one of his slimes, stating that he's being watched, but Yuji reveals that he had noticed quite a while ago, having spotted the two assassins on the edge of a cliff. A little later, we see the two assassins spying on Yuji through a bush, noting how Yuji is too carefree and defenseless, just laying there in broad daylight. The female assassin reminds her male duo that guilds have been issuing warnings for the disappearance of adventurers, meaning that their work assassinating people will be revealed if they kill too many people. Ignoring her words, the male assassin prepares to simply kill Yuji right now, as they're wasting time on a lowly tamer, when they could be fighting more interesting targets. But the female assassin warns him that Yuji is not a high priority on their kill list, as they are here just to assess his skills, meaning if the male assassin kills Yuji, she'll have to kill her partner. As silence grows between the two assassins, the male assassin stands down for now, seeing his partner's serious glare, but the male assassin is still annoyed that assassins, part of the renowned Blue Moon cult, are following a lowly tamer. Having been listening into their conversation, Yuji is able to confirm that the people following him are sent by the Blue Moon cult. Having figured out the stats of the two assassins following him, Yuji wonders how he can trick the two into thinking he's not a big threat. Deciding to put on an act, Yuji makes it to Boginia, heading towards Gagel's store, but knowing that the two assassins are watching him, he begins looking at the armor on display, acting dramatically when he sees the price only to be shooed away by the store clerk. Next, Yuji puts on a sad act, walking through town, only to bump into a villager, apologizing profusely to show that he's cowardly to the assassins. Heading to a food stand, Yuji shows that he only has 2 coins, making him seem poor in the eyes of the assassin. Finally, Yuji heads into a bar, pretending to get drunk, which convinces the male assassin that Yuji is not a threat, but the female assassin is still not convinced. Listening in on the assassins' conversations, Yuji decides to accept a quest hunting down some weak bulls. Heading to the location, Yuji telepathically speaks to his companions, telling them that for this fight, he'll have to act just like a tamer would, meaning that he can't help with any of the fights. Sending out his wolf to take on the bulls alone, the wolf suddenly gets nervous, having always been guided by Yuji to fight. When one of the bulls begins rushing the wolf tucks his head, too scared to fight, but this coincidentally redirects the bull away from the wolf, knocking the bull out. Seeing that he is capable of taking on a bull, the wolf gets fired up, exciting the slimes who are cheering the wolf on. Seeing his wolf in action, we flash back to when Yuji first met his wolf, having been passing through his forest, only to run into a wolf. Having reacted quickly, and casted a binding spell, Yuji is about to slay the wolf, but suddenly wonders what the wolf could be thinking. Just like how he is talking to his slimes, Yuji had begun to talk to the wolf, offering for it to become his companion. With only 2 bulls left, Yuji's wolf begins rushing the remaining bulls, able to dispatch them easily. Seeing Yuji's wolf display speed and power, the assassins begin to believe that Yuji is quite powerful, able to tame such a strong creature. But when Yuji hears this, Yuji heals the 2 bulls, allowing his wolf to attack them again. By repeatedly healing the bulls, Yuji is able to convince the assassins that his wolf is not that strong, and to top it off, Yuji casts speed and strength on the bulls, making the bulls an actual threat to his wolf. Seeing as he may have buffed the bulls too much, Yuji offers to enhance his wolf's speed and strength, but the wolf declines as he wants to show Yuji what he's truly capable of. With a howl to signify his resilience, the wolf charges at the bulls, able to eventually topple his enemies. Having witnessed Yuji's wolf fighting the bulls, the two assassins reason that Yuji can't be that strong, since his summons took so long to kill low-tier monsters. Hearing this, Yuji deems this quest a success, but suddenly the first bull that the wolf knocked out wakes up, charging directly at Yuji. Seeing this, Yuji immediately reacts, creating a blade out of thin air, only to cut down the bull in an instant. As he stands there alive, Yuji realizes that he's blown his cover, as we cut to the assassins. Having barely been able to see Yuji's speed, when taking down the bull, the two assassins begin to fear that Yuji may be a powerful tamer, capable of skills that he's hiding from them. Hearing this, Yuji prepares to kill them right now, but suddenly the assassins state that seeing a tamer with sword skills is quite common, therefore Yuji in their eyes is a nobody. As the assassins leave their hiding spots, Yuji has one of his slimes follow them, hearing that the assassin's next target is a priest, but although Yuji is relieved to not be targeted, he becomes serious upon finding out the assassin's next target. That night, Yuji listens in on the two assassins speaking to a orb, seemingly communicating with their boss. Their boss reveals that there is someone thwarting their plans, as the Blue Moon's facility at the town of Messiahs had been destroyed, and a rare cleansing flame had been used to rid the town of any evidence leading back to the cult. Hearing that there is someone acting up against their cult, the two assassins promise to hunt them down, but first they must kill their next target, the priest Father Stale. Hearing this, Yuji knows that he can't let them reach Father Stale, transferring an ice spell to his slime spying on the assassins, freezing the two assassins. Now with the two assassins out of his way, Yuji wonders why Father Stale is such a threat, but also wonders who the assassin's boss could be. The next morning, Yuji returns to Gagel's armor store, but the store clerk recognizes Yuji from yesterday, asking him to leave. When Yuji refuses, Gagel interrupts asking to know what the commotion is about, but upon laying eyes on Yuji's slimes, Gagel sternly apologizes for his store clerk's behavior, scolding his clerk for not realizing how powerful Yuji's slimes are. Chatting to Gagel's alone, Yuji asks if he could purchase armor for his slimes, but Gagel states that he'll have to create specific armor suited for his slimes, as they need a special type of armor. But there is one issue with crafting this special armor. Gagel tells Yuji that since his companions are quite high tier, none of the material that he has at the moment will be suitable to be worn by Yuji's companions. Hearing this, Gagel's store clerk wonders how Yuji's wolf and slime friends are so special, but Gagel states that it is true that his companions are quite low-tier creatures, but with Yuji's tamer class, they become almost godlike. Hearing this, Yuji wonders if there is even such armor for his godlike companions, but Gagel reassures Yuji that he can craft some, as long as he has the right materials. Taking out a jewel, Gagel states that these rare jewels can only be obtained by slaying lesser fire dragons, implying that better material will yield better armor. Sadly, Gagel tells Yuji that even lesser fire dragons will give material suitable for his companions, so Gagel asks that Yuji hunt down blue lesser fire dragons. Hearing this, Yuji learns that he must venture to a nearby mountain, where it's known that lesser fire dragons inhabit the mountain, but Gagel asks that Yuji be careful, as blue lesser fire dragons are quite rare. Gagel reveals that the village's top fighters when working as a group are able to take down normal lesser fire dragons, but they have even suffered defeat at the hands of the blue lesser fire dragons. Nonetheless, Gagel promises to craft Yuji amazing armor, as long as Yuji is able to return with the material. Before setting off, Yuji asks if there are normal fire dragons, but Gagel states that he's never heard of normal fire dragons being slayed, as only lesser fire dragons are killable. Hearing this, Yuji heads to the town's guild, accepting every single quest involving lesser fire dragons. Yuji reasons since he's going to be hunting these dragons down, he might as well get some extra gold from the materials he won't need. Wondering if Yuji is joking about the absurd amount of dragons he plans to hunt, to fulfill all the quests, Yuji reassures the receptionist that he'll slay the dragons using his magic, but the receptionist gets worried, as she reveals that dragons are immune to magic. The receptionist tells Yuji that the dragon's jewels grant them magical protection, and their tough scales protect them from ordinary physical attacks, an all-rounder tough creature. Asking the receptionist on tips to face these overpowered dragons, Yuji learns that most adventurers can kill lesser fire dragons by dumping water on them. Around a few liters should do the trick, but carrying huge buckets of water all the way on top of a mountain will be tiring. But Yuji tells the receptionist that he's capable of using water magic, but the receptionist cuts Yuji off, telling him that no ordinary mage has enough mana to create enough water to slay a single lesser fire dragon. Hinting at the fact that he himself is no ordinary mage, Yuji is told by the receptionist that he'll be crossing a river before he gets to the nearest mountain, stating that there will be piranhas that are quite dangerous to deal with, but this only makes Yuji accept every quest involving the piranhas. Making his way towards the nearby mountains, Yuji wonders if the volcano near the mountains will erupt anytime soon, but out of nowhere, the gang encounter a red slime. Taming it, Yuji's blue slime chats with the red slime, happy to hear that the red slime confirms that the volcano will not erupt today. Taming multiple other red slimes, Yuji makes his way to the piranha-infested river, wondering if his blue slimes can detect any piranhas in the water. Since the current is too strong, the blue slimes are unable to detect anything, making Yuji wonder how he can check if the water is safe. Knowing that his slimes can't swim, Yuji begins creating a spell, binding his blue and red slimes into a lattice-like net, where he'll have the slimes enter the waters, all whilst he holds onto the net, to ensure they don't all drown. At first the slimes don't detect anything in the waters, prompting them to investigate deeper, but when several slimes travel into a hole in the water, they draw the attention of a huge piranha, rushing the slimes, only to collide with Yuji's net. Feeling the piranha hit his collide with his slimes, Yuji pulls all of his slimes, along with the piranha out of the water, casting an ice spell to immobilize the creature. Wondering what to do with it, Yuji is caught off guard when the piranha suddenly breaks out of Yuji's ice spell, charging Yuji, but luckily, Yuji reacts fast enough, casting a fire spell and incinerating the piranha. With it finally safe to cross the river, Yuji and his horde of slimes happily make their ways up the mountain, with Yuji wondering when he got so many slimes. Suddenly Yuji spots several lesser fire dragons, wondering why his slimes didn't notify him of them being close by. Only when the slimes move closer, do they realize that they are in the presence of these dragons. Pumped up, Yuji orders his slimes to engage the dragons, but when he turns around, he realizes his slimes are all cowering in fear, forced to approach them himself. Sizing up one of the lesser fire dragons, Yuji blasts the dragon with a water beam, shocked to see the dragon instantly die, amazed that the dragons are so weak to water. As the dragon's body begins to disintegrate, Yuji picks up its core, inspiring the other slimes, as they now know of a way to face these scary dragons. Letting his slimes loose, and transferring his water cannon to them, Yuji racks up a lot of loot, but is suddenly notified by his slimes that they've spotted a blue lesser dragon. Upon first glance, Yuji can sense the blue lesser dragon's potent aura, and on top of that the blue dragon's body is far bigger than normal lesser dragons. Ordering 10 of his slimes to surround the blue lesser dragon, Yuji transfers water cannons to his 10 slimes, blasting the blue dragon with water, but the dragon doesn't flinch. Seeing the blue dragon make its way towards his slimes, Yuji tries out a medium-tier ice spell, encasing the dragon in ice, but it simply breaks free. Having suspected that the spell was too weak, Yuji has his 10 slime gather in front of the dragon, transferring the mid-tier ice spell and having the 10 slimes cast the same ice spell, but the output is multiplied by 10. Now with a blue lesser dragon jewel, Yuji reasons that this should be enough for armor, but reasons that since they are here, they should hunt several more lesser dragons to cover all the quests. With Yuji and his companions slaying dragons until sunset, Yuji returns to the guild, submitting all his quests and confirming that he's slain 202 lesser fire dragons and 1 piranha. Shocked at Yuji's feat, the receptionist wonders how tough the piranha was, but is surprised when Yuji tells her that the piranha was not near the surface, instead it was hiding, which the receptionist writes down, as this is not normal behavior. Heading over to Gagel's workshop, Gagel is surprised to see Yuji return safely, wondering if Yuji was successful. Unveiling his blue lesser dragon jewel, Gagel is impressed, having not expected Yuji to slay a blue dragon, but is even more surprised when Yuji unveils a second blue dragon jewel, intending to have one for his slime, and one for his wolf. To top things off, Yuji unloads all of his regular lesser dragon jewels, shocking Gagel, as all the jewels are all high quality. Pumped to be working with such valuable material, Gagel and his store clerk work through the night, showing off their newly crafted armor. Trying out their armor, Yuji's wolf and slime begin moving at incredible speeds, but when Yuji applies a speed boost, they accelerate at light speed. Moving on to spell transfers, Yuji conjures a massive ice wall, simply transferring a simple ice spell, shocking everyone, but Yuji asks Gagel to keep his powers a secret. Checking on Yuji's companion's armor, Gagel stresses that Yuji's magic could shatter this armor, prompting Yuji to ask for even more durable armor. Gagel hesitates at first, but he tells Yuji that the fire dragon, the one that lives in the volcano, will yield the strongest jewel, but he warns Yuji to not even bother. Wondering why, Gagel states that Yuji will have to see for himself, sending him off. Laying in bed, Yuji wonders how dangerous this dragon sleeping in the volcano can be, but suddenly Yuji gets a report from his slime, learning that the lesser dragons on the mountain are acting up, as if they were possessed, just like the monsters that appeared in the forest in his first town. Ordering his wolf and slimes to search for any people near mountains, his companions confirm that there are people nearby, but before Yuji can ask his companion to retrieve them, Yuji looks outside his window, spotting the massive fire dragon rising from the volcano. Seeing the dragon remain in the volcano, Yuji telepathically communicates with his companions, asking if they are okay, confirming that they are all right, but they can't believe how massive a true fire dragon is. Nonetheless, they can ignore the fire dragon for now, as it doesn't seem to be moving, but what does draw Yuji's attention is the two suspicious men spotted heading towards the fire dragon, with barrels on their back. Using his slime to listen in on the two suspicious men, Yuji overhears the two men discussing how they plan to do something with the fire dragon. But when one of the men questions what would happen if they were to fail, the other man mentions the town of Orderion, reassuring each other that their plan will succeed. Hearing their confidence, Yuji has a bad feeling, immediately transferring a binding spell to one of his invisible slimes above the men, shooting a net at the two men. But the men easily react to the spell, dodging it, only to wonder where it could have come from. At first, they wonder if this was a trap set up to catch monsters, only to get paranoid about someone following them, but eventually they brush it aside, continuing on their mission. Not too soon later, Yuji tries again, having his slime positioned behind the men this time, but when Yuji begins his spell transfer, one of the men pick up on a magic spell being cast behind them, disappearing, only to appear above the target, tossing his dagger at the slime, removing its invisibility. Satisfied that they've caught the thing following them, the men move towards the slime, but Yuji had anticipated this, transferring the same binding spell to another of his invisible slimes, landing cleanly on the men this time. As the slimes unveil themselves, the men realize that this must be the work of a tamer, but before the slimes can bring them back to Yuji, the men bite on a mysterious poison, killing themselves, which tells Yuji that they were part of the Blue Moon of Salvation cult. Moving on, Yuji has his slimes inspect the barrels the men were carrying, but the slimes become uneasy as they inspect the barrels. Not wanting to open the barrels, the slimes report to Yuji that whatever is inside the barrels remind them of the red crystals that the Blue Moon cult was making. Hearing this, Yuji reasons he should ask an expert. Having his slimes plant a single flower, Yuji is able to bring his dryad friend to the slime's location, having her inspect the barrels. When they open the barrels, they all are surprised to see water, but the dryad senses that the water has been tainted with the same thing used to create the red crystals, and the amount of water wouldn't be nearly enough to kill the awoken fire dragon, making everyone believe that the men had intended to irritate the fire dragon further. Reasoning he should get rid of this tainted water, Yuji's slime cleanse the water barrels, only to thank the dryad for her help, sending her back to the forest. Next, Yuji asks for his slimes to investigate further, but not too soon after, his slimes report that they've spotted a huge herd of lesser fire dragons gathered in an area of the mountain. Just then, Yuji is called by the owner of the inn, asking Yuji to evacuate, as it has begun to rain. As we watch the town's villagers preparing to evacuate town, in fear of the rain irritating the fire dragon, it's revealed that the fire dragon has never awoken for the rain ever, but there is one time. At the same time, Yuji's companions are rushing away from the mountain, reporting that the fire dragon has finally begun moving towards town, and that the rain is definitely irritating the fire dragon and the lesser fire dragons. Cutting back to Yuji, we see him positioned on a cliff, thinking about how the last time the fire dragon had awoken during a rainstorm, it became so enraged that it wiped out the closest town with a singular breath. Seeing as the villagers nearby have begun to evacuate town, Yuji reasons that he should at least try to stop the creature, wondering if he could make use of the 2 rivers in front of the fire dragon. Ordering his companions to observe if the fire dragon will enter the first river, Yuji's companions grow weaker the closer they get to the fire dragon, as the dragon is constantly emanating heat from its body. As the dragon approaches the first river, it nonchalantly steps into the river, immediately evaporating the river, signaling that it will take a huge amount of water to take out this dragon, as the river was filled with quite a few liters of water, but didn't even faze the fire dragon. Accepting the fire dragon's challenge, Yuji ordered his companions to prepare to attack, prompting Yuji's companions to dash in front of the fire dragon, allowing Yuji to transfer an ice spell, aiming directly at the dragon's foot. Upon impact, the ice spell freezes the surrounding area, but the dragon easily breaks free from the ice. Following up, Yuji transfers the same spell to 10 of his slimes, having them aim for the dragon's head, but once again the fire dragon breaks free, retaliating with a fire spell of its own. Reacting to this, Yuji transfers an ice spell to 20 of his slimes, perfectly negating the fire dragon's fire breath. Knowing that he shouldn't draw the fight on for too long, Yuji has his companions retreat behind the second larger river, allowing the fire dragon to begin moving into the second river. Right before the fire dragon crosses the second river, Yuji unleashes a huge amount of water, which is able to even drag the fire dragon along its current. It's revealed that Yuji had placed his slimes to block up and store a huge amount of water in the second river, all whilst he was fighting and stalling to build up a huge amount of water. Asking his companions to check on the fire dragon, they rush to where the fire dragon is, happy to see that the dragon is not moving and face down in the river. Suddenly, the fire dragon wakes up, peeking out of the water, only to blast Yuji's companions with a fire breath. Luckily, Yuji had reacted fast enough, casting a barrier and protecting his companions. Ordering his companions to immediately retreat, Yuji spots the fire dragon charging up a potent fire breath, aiming it toward the village. Now serious, Yuji searches for a high-tier ice spell, ordering one of his slimes to meet the fire dragon's breath head-on. As the fire dragon unleashes its almighty dragon's breath, Yuji transfers his high-tier ice spell to his slime, clashing beams with the dragon's breath. Pumping more and more magical power into his ice spell, Yuji is eventually able to overpower the fire dragon, completely freezing the dragon and its surrounding area. As the fire dragon begins to perish, Yuji notes how the rain had also stopped, happy to see that he's acquired a fire dragon jewel, but hear that his slimes have also found something suspicious. With the sun setting, Yuji heads back to town, greeting Gagel and his clerk, who are both happy to see that the fire dragon suddenly disappeared. Wondering why Yuji is back, Yuji unveils the red dragon jewel, making Gagel realize that Yuji was the one who made the fire dragon disappear. As thanks for saving his village, Gagel offers to craft Yuji some amazing armor, using this high-tier material. In the meantime, Yuji heads to the guild, asking the receptionist if she knows of a town by the name of Ordarian. Recognizing the name, the receptionist states that the town of Ordarian is quite special, as unlike other towns, it values its privacy, being completely independent of other towns and their rules. Hearing this, Yuji has his slime take out the suspicious object they found on the mountain, asking if the receptionist knows what the object is. Having a look, the receptionist states that the object is an artificial rainmaker, which all guilds have, for times of drought, but when the receptionist attempts to check where it's from, she realizes that the name on the machine has been removed. With everything pointing towards the town of Ordarian, Yuji the next morning heads back to Gagel's place, picking up the legendary tier piece of armor Gagel had managed to craft. With a final farewell, Gagel asks that Yuji be careful wherever he's heading to next. Elsewhere in an unknown location, a mysterious hooded figure is seen chanting something on a ritual circle. Upon completion, the hooded figure confirms that they've been granted an unrivaled strength, setting off to face their target. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and comment.